Welcome to Between the Reads, where Black books are shared and celebrated all year long. I'm your host, Audra Russell. There are so many great things going on this year as I continue to amplify Black stories, but I can't do it without your support. Please consider heading over to patreon.com/betweenthereads and becoming a member, or make a one-time donation at www.ko-fi.com/betweenthereadspodcast. Are you ready, Booze and Bros? Then sit back, relax, and let's get to it. As long as she could remember, Shelly Ellis, who also writes under the name Shelly Stratton, has wanted to be a writer. In college, she studied journalism and started out as a crime reporter for a small local newspaper. Now she is an editor at a trade journal in Virginia. Her fiction writing career began when she became one of 4 finalists in the BET Books First Time Writers Contest when she was 19 years old. The prize was having her first short story romance published in the book, All That and Then Some. Her first novel, The Right Maneuver, debuted in April 2011, and her second, A Love Built to Last, was released in November 2011 and nominated for the African American Literary Award in the romance category. Shelley started her women's fiction series with Kensington Publishing in 2013. The series earned a starred review from Publishers Weekly for the first novel in the series, Can't Stand the Heat, and a 46th annual NAACP Image Award nomination for the Gibbons Gold Digger novel, Another Woman's Man. She lives in Prince George's County, Maryland, with her husband and their daughter. She loves to paint, read, and watch movies. Shelley, welcome to Between the Reads.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you could be here. I truly enjoyed this book, The Three Mrs. Greys. So let's just get right to it. Why don't you tell our readers what it's all about?
Well, The Three Mrs. Greys is about 3 women who discover that they're married to the same man after this man, Cyrus Grey, is shot, and they all arrive at the hospital. One was with him when he was shot. The other was called by the hospital staff, and the other finds out through a nurse in attendance. And so after he's shot and after all of the women meet each other, sparks fly, needless to say, and they start to discover that not the only secret that their husband had wasn't just that he was polygamous, but he has other secrets in his life that may have led to the shooting. So the women then go about to try to figure out, why was Cyrus shot? What other secrets is he harboring? And are any of them next on the hit list?
Some drama for you. This book, I think I liked it because I just could not figure out who did what. And I'm still not sure who did what after the end of this. So where did this novel begin for you?
Well, the story of a man married to different women isn't an original story. It actually, it's not even an original crime story. The original inspiration I had was from an ID Discovery episode about a Haitian doctor who was married to 2 different women, and after he had a car crash, both of the women ran into each other. So I decided, that's a great starting point, because it's such a cataclysmic scene of not having a life and death situation and then women being thrown into it. So they're dealing with the death or possible death of their spouse, in addition to finding out he's had this secret life this whole time. So it's coming to terms with all of this information at once. And I was thinking, what about, instead of just 2 wives, maybe 3? Because believe it or not, and I give example in the book about a man who was married to, because when one of the wives discovers, oh my God, Cyrus is married to another woman, she talks about, I remember this story of this man who was married to 6 different women. It actually is a real news story.
Oh, wow.
That he was married to women in different states, and I guess he was like a truck driver, so his cover story was I'm traveling. But he married each of them and took money from them individually. So it's happened in real life, but I thought just having the dynamic of these very different women, because the women that I chose, Noelle is a former model who's now trying to run her own boutique in Virginia. There's Vanessa, who's the trophy wife and has been very happy in her trophy wife role in Maryland. And then there's the youngest wife, Diamond, who's a former escort, who's now trying to basically go legit. And she thought Cyrus and their life together would be the path to legitimacy and the happiness that she always wanted. And then she finds out once again, like, things aren't what she expected.
Right. Now, did you set this in Maryland just because you're from Maryland, or what was the...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I most of my stories are set in my region.
Okay.
Normally because it's easy for me because I know the landscape, I know the people, and our area is filled with so many different types of Black people. Some are affluent, some don't have that much money, some are very urban, and some live in the suburbs. And if you go even further out, some are rural. So it's a good place for me, at least, to set my stories.
Yeah, it was kind of neat to, because I live in Anne Arundel County, so when I saw Anne Arundel County, I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah, we go there all the time.
Yeah.
We go there all the time.
Yeah. So, now, let's just get to Cyrus Grey, because, girl, how did you come up with such an intrepid character? Because it wasn't just that he was polygamous. He was just deceitful and awful and narcissistic and like, how did you come up with him?
I have for the past few years, and I just seen it in like the zeitgeist on the world stage, even in streaming on TVs, about con men and how they're really good at taking on different personalities in order to appeal to individuals. And Cyrus was that person. He is a narcissist because he believes that he's the smartest guy in the room. And for each of the women, he was able to assume what they needed. If they needed a father figure, he was there for them. If they needed a lover or who could win them over and make them feel special, he was there for them. If they needed a protector or a provider, he was going to be there for them. So he was able to see in each of these women what they needed, and he was able to become that man to win them over. And so when they find out, like, wait, he was just playing a role for me and for these other women, and how could he do this to me? Like, I thought he loved me. And they find out, well, he claimed that he loved all of us, so which one was he telling the truth? And Cyrus was saying, I was telling the truth in all of you. In my own way, I loved you all.
And I mean, that's the thing with Cyrus, because he made me so mad, because it's not even like he took money from any of them. He actually provided them all with very good lifestyles. But he was also manipulative, because like you said, whatever he saw that they lacked, that they wanted, that they craved, that's what he became for them. And and one of the characters, I think it was Diamond, when they went to go meet at the restaurant, she was like, the only thing that we have in common is that we're all attractive. There was nothing about any of the three of them that was, similar.
Physically, he didn't even have a type.
Right, exactly. He was, he was so infuriating. And even when he got busted, when he woke up from his coma, he was just like... He
wasn't apologetic.
No! He was just like...
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Well, you found me out.
It's like, I wasn't expecting you to find out this way, but you found out. I'm like, sir?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Well, and for him, he still feels like, I fulfilled my role as a husband to you. Did I not? Like, I took care of all of you. Right. I was there for you. I provided for, like, with Vanessa, he's like, I provided for our children. Right. When you wanted the big house, I gave you the big house. For Noelle, when you wanted to start a business, did I not give you the money to start a business? Not to give too much away about Noelle, but when she has her little situation, he's like, I protected you. Right. Did I not? And so for him, he's like, I just think you're all being very ungrateful. Right. For what I've done for you. And they're looking at him like, you lied to all of us.
Yeah.
All this time, and you're not even apologetic for it.
Yeah. And like you said, I had to really, the trick with the show is trying to think of questions that give the readers enough, but without giving stuff away. And every time I wrote the questions, I was like, no, okay, I can't do that. I can't do that. Because, even like what he did with Noelle, we won't say what, but to make her think what he made her think was just, and he just didn't, he just, like you said, he was just very unapologetic about the whole thing. It just was like, you were accusing him of stealing your French fries. And he was like, yeah, I did it,
Yeah. And he's like, I don't understand why you guys are so mad. I mean, I can see why you're upset, but I don't understand why we need to why you're reacting to the way you are. Right. And the women are looking at him crazy. Like, what are you talking about?
You're kidding. That's what I just kept saying. Like, you're kidding, right? You're kidding.
Yeah, but I mean, he's the classic narcissist. And actually, to me, when you explore those type of con man personalities, a lot of them are able to perpetuate the crimes that they do, is because they operate with a very different moral system. Like, they don't really see things the way other people see it. Mm-hmm. And I wanted that to come across with Cyrus, that he's very much like, I feel like I did what I needed to do, and just because people don't understand why I would be married to 3 different women doesn't mean I shouldn't be married to 3 different women. Mm-hmm. That's his attitude. Mm-hmm. But I guess the women are like, you never gave us a chance to engage in this and really make the decision. Do I want to be with a man who's committed to 2 other women? Right. You made the decisions all on your own. Mm-hmm. And for him, he's like, there's a disconnect. In the story continues, the 3 Mrs. Greys continues to Truth Flies and Mr. Grey. He still is very adamant that, like, they're just ungrateful.
He's like,
they're ungrateful.
He's like, y'all all should just be happy that I'm just like, really? Okay, so we're not taking any accountability for the lies and they weren't just small lies. Like, all of these women's lives were ruined.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's just like, doesn't affect me.
Well, like I said, he feels that he's done what he's supposed to do as a husband. And he's like, yeah, I may have lied about 2 other wives, but I mean, I was still a good husband to you, was I not? So for me, it was like, as a writer, you try to separate yourself from it. If I'm trying to write in his head, I'm trying to judge or use the logic he would use. And like I said, I felt that he's a very narcissistic personality, have a different kind of moral system, and he still will not see their side. Mm-hmm. That he's like, I just think you're ungrateful.
Right.
I mean, the secret's out. We can talk about it.
Right.
But,
right.
Yeah, but
right. Summoning them to the hospital, like, hey, like nothing's wrong. It's like, okay, sir. Okay. So speaking on that, how did you get into Cyrus's head?
Well, I like to write really off characters. Now, that's not to say that sometimes they can be kind of exhausting, but to me, it's those are the type of characters that I'm like, to me, the greatest villains are the ones that are complex. They're not just evil just to be evil. That there's a backstory, there's a logic to what they're doing. And for me, I wanted to write Cyrus in a way that you would hate him and you want to see him get his comeuppance, but you still, you're not going to skip over his chapter or skip over his reasoning because you want to, it's like, I just want to figure out what is this man about? Like, who is he? Why is he like this? And so for me, it was like trying to understand that type of psyche, trying to still make it engaging so that the reader hates them, but they still want to keep reading to see what happens to them.
Right.
And I love characters like that because I'm like, I don't always have to like a character to want to read more about them. But sometimes I try to balance it out with other things, like other people that they engage with, so that you can also see how they interact with other people. Because you see moments when Cyrus was very loving, or Cyrus was trying to be kind, or he seemed that way. And then you see the flip when the veil comes down. And so to me, it's always fun to write those characters. I couldn't stay in that mindset or that head the entire book, but I can do it for a few chapters.
Okay. So I was going to say, I don't think that he has a backstory. I think Cyrus is just an ass because Cyrus is just an ass. I mean, there's no backstory for him. I just can't. I can't accept it.
Well, the second book gives a little bit more of a backstory or his insight, because even my editor was like, why is he so mean? Or what is it about this guy that he feels like he doesn't have to answer for himself or answer to anyone? So she's like, I think we need a little bit more about him, like his mindset or his explanation of how he became who he became, and how he rationalizes that it's okay that he is the way he is.
Okay. I don't know, Shelly. I still Cyrus to me, because when Vanessa showed up in the hospital, he was like, "Hey, baby," and she beat the brakes off him. I was like, "Yes, let her go. Let her keep beating him. Like, don't hold her back. Let her beat his ass. He needs to be mollywopped, like real good."
Yeah. No, it is so funny because some people, some of the reviews are like, the behavior of the women is just so ghetto, and it's like Real Housewives. And I'm like, I'm gonna be honest, if I found out that my husband was married to multiple women, and he felt no need to let me know, let alone apologize for it, I don't think my response would be just like sadness and tears. It would be a tremendous amount of anger as well. And I'm like, and each woman expresses her anger differently. And Vanessa is the type to start swinging. She's just that type of girl.
I mean, I think any woman would start swinging. At least I know I would. Okay? I mean...
that's what I thought, but I said, I guess if some people are like, that's just unbecoming behavior. And I'm like, well, to each his own.
And they're probably the first ones that would be up there acting a complete fool if they found out that their husband had more than one wife. So please do not, no.
For years, it's like not an affair, but a whole wife for years.
Families, houses, bank accounts. Cars.
Exactly. It's like he was running a whole different household, and he didn't even tell you. And I'm like, so your response wouldn't be like maybe a little violent, just a little.
Anybody who says they wouldn't be violent is lying. There would be at least a slap to the face or something. There would be.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah,
so I'm like, well.
Yeah, whatever. We don't listen to them people, Shelly. So, now, what inspired you to create Noelle and Vanessa and Diamond?
Well, I really wanted women who were polar opposites, just to illustrate the fact, because when they all come together and they're like, I don't get it. I don't understand how this man chose all of us. And I wanted, like, Noelle is the sophisticated one. Like, she's from New York. She did Paris runways. She likes fine clothes and fine dining. And Vanessa is the one who's much more of a climber. That she feels perfectly comfortable getting uncouth if she needs to, if the situation calls for it. Right. But she likes the nicer things too. And like I said, she was set to try to find a man who could provide for her and her children, as she was taught by her mother, Caroline, to do. And so this is what she sees in Cyrus. And then there's Diamond, who's probably the most naive, but has been through the most of the group, because she actually sees Cyrus as, because her pimp was so abusive verbally and physically and mentally, she sees Cyrus as a savior. And so she's like, this is a nice man who kind of pulled me up and made me into his princess, and I'm forever grateful to him, because actually she's the only wife who, instead of responding with anger at the discovery of the other women, she's confused, because she's like, he never even asked me would I be comfortable with sharing him with other women. He didn't even give me the option. And because she's a woman who was used to sharing her man with other women,
right?
And so she's like, I don't know if I would have been okay with it, but it would have been nice for him to at least ask.
Right.
And the other women are like, oh no, that wasn't even up for consideration. I never would have shared my husband with another woman. But Diamond's the one quietly thinking, like, I may have considered it if he would have at least told me.
Right.
And so there's all these different perspectives, and they bring different backgrounds and different trauma too.
Right.
And like Diamond, Noelle has wanted a child, and even in the beginning of the book, she's trying to convince Cyrus that she should become a mother and they should have babies. And so when she meets, and Cyrus is like, I'm not really into that. And so when she meets
blames
Vanessa,
it on her depression. I was too through with him for that.
Yeah. That's what they said. He's a master manipulator. And so when she meets Vanessa and sees that they have 3 children together, she's like even more devastated, because she's like, why wouldn't he have babies with me, but he would have babies with her? I don't understand. And so yeah, I wanted to bring those different perspectives, the different personalities, the different things that these women are coming to terms with too. Because Vanessa is also, she's struggling with that she was always the beautiful girl, and now she sees herself aging. And so she's facing the reality of you may not be that girl anymore, which then leads her to engage in a relationship at the beginning of the book,
right,
to get that confidence back. So all of these women are walking into this situation, bringing all this drama and all this baggage to the table, and then they find out their husband is married.
He ain't
to
shit.
Other people.
They find out he ain't shit is what they find out, ma'am.
So that's what. So for me, it's like, okay, so not only do you have these different personalities, you have all this baggage that each woman is bringing with them, and now she's faced with this situation, and it's like, okay, with this personality, with this baggage, how does each individual respond?
Right.
So
now, Vanessa is the only one who has a parental figure with a presence in the book. Please tell us about Carol Walters, because Carol is.
Well, she was a fun character, right? And she was the one who taught her daughter Vanessa how to seduce rich men, and how, because she was like, if you want a good life, you're not going to deal with a broke man. You want someone who to provide for you, to take care of you and your worries. So she wanted her to seek out a man. So, and she's a little bit colder even than Vanessa. Like, when it comes to Vanessa, thinks she's ruthless, but her mother's advice is like even more harsh. But in some ways, her mother just feels that she's trying to be helpful and logical for her daughter. Like, she's like, remove emotions from this situation. What do you really need to do? Because the first thing that she talks about when she discovers that Cyrus is married to other women, and she's like, yeah, he's married to other women, but who shot him?
Right.
Like, and she's like, Mom, I don't want to talk about it. She's like, no, you need to worry about it.
Because you might be going to jail.
Exactly. So her mother is much more like, I know you're upset about the whole wife thing, but I mean, who shot your husband? Like, you need is like, did your boyfriend shoot your husband? Like, you need to worry about that.
Right.
You can worry about the other girl. Sometimes, like, if she hasn't been married to him as long as you, what difference does it make?
Right.
And she's like, and meanwhile, Vanessa's like, I'm more emotionally devastated, and you're talking about, like, trying to figure out.
Her mama's like, yeah, be devastated later. We need to make sure that you ain't going to jail.
Exactly.
Because
like,
I told you to stop messing with that little boy, and you didn't do it. You know, and then even when Cyrus, you know, did some things later and threatened Vanessa, her mama was still like, what did I tell you? Like, mama, damn, can you please just, can I have a moment where you just, like, support me emotionally? She's like,
and
no.
Her mother's like, no. We don't have time for that.
No, we don't have time for that. I need to keep you out of jail.
Exactly. And so we need to figure this out. So, and that's what Vanessa's trying to be her mother, because she's still, at least for most of the book, she's still trying to come to terms with, this is a man I know our marriage was struggling, but I still was in love with him. And so she's still coming to terms with that, but her mother's like, we don't have time for that.
We don't have time for that. You got kids, you got a lifestyle and you need to protect.
Exactly.
What are we doing? Yeah.
And that's what she's like. She was like, well, can those other women take his money if he dies?
Right. Exactly.
That's what her mother is focused on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Her mama needs a whole book by herself, because I need to know Carol's backstory. Carol's got some issues going on, because that one thing that she dropped with her own husband, she was like, he was healthy, and then he wasn't. I was like, okay, Carol.
And her daughter's like,
her daughter's like Scooby, like, huh? What? What did you say, Mama? And she's just like I need Carol's backstory, because Carol's just very matter of fact. Yep.
Yeah, it's those characters that are always the most fun to write, because I would say they're the comedic relief, but in a messed up sort of way. Because they're the character that every time they come on the page, you're like, oh God, what is she going to say now? What is she going to say now?
Right.
And then I too, she had like one of the filthiest mouths.
Listen. Carol pulled no punches. She told it like it was. She was like, Mama. She's like, don't mama me. You tell me what I said ain't true. And, please.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the chapters' points of view switch between the three women. How did you find their individual voices?
Well, I kept it all in third person, but I tried to tonally that you could figure out each woman's perspective. So I tried to keep in mind, like, Vanessa's going to be emotional, that it's going to be a lot of anger in her chapters. Noelle is more inquisitive, of like trying to figure out what exactly is going on here. Like, she's kind of like the investigator of the group, that she's like going different places and trying to talk to different people. And Noelle is someone, because the added factor in Noelle's life is that her boyfriend is now out of jail, her ex.
You mean Diamond?
No, sorry, Diamond. Yeah.
Okay.
Her former pimp is now out of jail, and so she's trying to figure out, was he the one who shot Cyrus? So she's dealing with the fact of like, okay, trying to track that down, and she's still dealing with the fear of, oh my God, this person who ruled my life, I now have to, in order to figure out what happened to my husband, I have to come in contact with him again. So her chapters are talking about that too, like seeing she was the one who was there when Cyrus was shot, and now she has to see her pimp who made her life just hell. And so she's dealing with that in her chapters. So it's the third person voice is the same, but tonally I just tried to make it's a different energy from chapter to chapter.
And as much as these women all go through, I mean, to me, Diamond went through the worst of it because of her life prior. So why you have to do her like that, Shelly?
Well, she gets her redemption in book 2, actually, because I people even said like you were hard on her, but I'm like, you never know where people's stories are gonna go. So she has a much better, easier character arc in book 2.
Okay.
Because she comes to terms with a lot of things because of what she went through. She needed a wake up moment too, because I'm like, she was still totally in Cyrus's corner for most of the book.
Right.
Like, it's that she still, even by the end, still hadn't turned on him. So she has to have a wake up moment and to go through something and say like, you this is not healthy for you. This is not helping you. He's not the savior you thought he was.
Right. Yeah, because she still had that prostitute mentality. Like, I'm just, you know, he was basically like her pimp too. I mean, without the abuse and the selling her out to other people, but he was basically just another form of a pimp for her. Yeah. So, now, of the 3 Mrs. Greys, who do you like the most? And who do you like the least?
I think I liked Noelle the most because of her. She had a hard background too, but she was able to build up from it. Who I liked the least, even though she was the most fun to write, was Vanessa.
And why is that?
Well, I think it's because Vanessa is motivated, even though her husband's a narcissist, she's kind of a narcissist too, because she, by the end, does her own form of manipulation to get what she wants. And so I'm kind of like, as angry as she is at her husband for this behavior, she replicates it to get what she wants from someone else. So I'm like, you can be mad at him, but you're willing to
do the same
implement
thing.
The same strategy, you know, and to get, and that's actually one of the reasons why he's like, you of all people shouldn't be mad.
Right.
I mean, we're kind of made from the same cloth, and you're getting sanctimonious with me.
Right.
Yeah, because he's like, you thought you were manipulating me. You were the gold digger who was manipulating me to be your provider all these years, and you thought that's what you were doing. What makes us any different? And so, in some ways, it's kind of true that she has no problem saying, doing what she needs to do in order to get what she wants.
Yep. Yeah. They're kind of like two sides of the same coin type thing. Yeah. So now, if the 3 Mrs. Greys were on a show like Survivor, which one would you root for to win?
Vanessa.
Still, you.
Because she. I wouldn't even, because I wanted her to win, but I'm like, she's gonna win. She's just gonna win.
She's so much like Cyrus. Yeah,
I would want Diamond to win because I'm like, please, she deserves something. But I was like, Vanessa's gonna win because she's just gonna run over everybody else.
She
and
probably
manipulate and do what she manipulate and do what she needed to do to win.
Right, exactly. Now, Cyrus was in a coma, so we don't really hear his point of view right until the very end. But what about Tariq? Why don't we hear from him, his point of view?
Well, I wanted Tariq is a character that you see largely from Noelle's perspective, because I think if you got too much into his head, that it would. I wanted more surprises to happen along the way. So I wanted him to be one of the many cast of characters. Like, each woman has somebody that they suspect that, like, they're not being completely truthful with me. With Vanessa, it's the guy she's having the affair with. With Noelle, it's Tariq, who is Cyrus's business partner, because he's the one who knew about all the wives. And she was like, wait, if you knew about all the wives, and you didn't tell me, what else do you know that you're not telling me? And for Diamond, it's her former pimp, who she's like, did he have something to do with this? So I wanted all of them to see it from their perspective, like how they're seeing these men and what they think they are being truthful about or not being truthful about. So I felt if I got into Tariq's head, I would be giving stuff away.
Okay, I got you. But I am noticing that you like to write about gold diggers, because you do. I read on your website you got the Gold Digger series, ma'am.
Because they're fun characters to write about. They're just fun. It's this tension of, and even, well, with the Gold Diggers, I will say their redemption arc is that they eventually find out money isn't everything. Vanessa never comes to that conclusion.
No.
But their story was basically that they start in thinking that they want men with money and finding out that it's not what it's cracked up to be, and the relationships that they get from it are not long-lasting relationships, and they aren't always treated well by the men that they're with. And so a lot of by the end, most of the characters end up marrying men who don't have money. But with this story, I revisited it because I wanted to take the more cynical approach. There isn't going to be a redemption arc for Vanessa, that she married the man that she thought was going to take care of her for the rest of her life. And then she find out, like, well, yeah, he was, but he was also going to take care of other people.
Right.
You weren't the only one that he was taking care of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, Julian, he was Diamond's pimp. She managed to somewhat get away from him. And I know you said that everyone has a backstory. Does he have a backstory as well, or
not really? Yeah. I mean, besides that, like, that he just grew up on the streets. But it wasn't just the fact that he grew up on the streets; is that he also learned how to. He's a manipulator of women, just like Cyrus, but he did it in a physical way. He did it in an emotional way. Cyrus is a lot more low key in how he did it, and to me, like, Cyrus would be the carrot and Julian was the stick. That if Cyrus, if he wanted to win you over, he would give you things and show you affection. Julian would beat you down or make you feel less worthy so that you would never leave him. And so that's one of the reasons why Diamond doesn't even want to talk to him anymore, because she's like, I don't want to get sucked back into that. And she even frustrates her when she finally calls him and he's like, we need to meet, and she's like, why do we need to meet? Why can't we just talk? And he's like, you're going to meet me, and you're going to meet me here. And she ends up saying yes, and she's like, look, I knew this was going to happen. It's like, as soon as I talk to him, I fall back into the same routine again. It's I can't say no to him, and she has to remind herself. She's like, she even says something to herself that is like, no, you belong to Cyrus now. You don't belong to Julian anymore. So it's still her having that same mindset that, no, you really don't belong to anybody but yourself. But she can't break it yet.
Nope. She can't.
At least not.
And I was yelling at her all the way through those scenes, like, don't go, let him tell, whatever. Yeah. Because I feel like somebody like him, he wouldn't even tell. It's that power thing. It's the getting in the mind thing that, he uses to just scare her into doing what she wants. I was like, just say no. Just say, okay, no, nigga, I'm not going to do nothing. I'm not coming to pick you up. I'm not buying you the necklace. I'm not doing nothing. And go ahead and tell everybody what I did. Because you know what? Yeah. Then I ain't got to keep it a secret no more. And it's off my head. I just needed her to do that.
And some people were like, she's so stupid. She's so dumb. And I'm like, no, it's the conditioning. She's not doing it because she thinks it's the right thing to do. She's doing it because she's been conditioned to do what he's in her head. To do.
He's in her head.
Yeah, and that's why she didn't want to go back, because she's like, I know what's going to happen. I know he's going to tell me to do something, and I'm going to end up doing it again because I'm so used to obeying his command. It's hard to tell him no.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So what was one of the most fun scenes to write in the book?
The most fun scene is the restaurant scene when all the wives meet. When they all bring their marriage certificates and they're sizing each other up. Noelle is the one who's trying to stay more neutral. That she's like, I'm just trying to figure out what happened to our husband and who do you think did it, and what do you know about him? Because she was like, we all have these little pieces of the puzzle. We all know different little aspects of him. Maybe if we combine minds, we can come to a conclusion. But Vanessa's there for blood.
Vanessa was just like, I'm here to confirm that I was first and that I am the only legal wife that he has.
Exactly. It's just like, I'm putting everybody on notice at this table. Every single woman.
Like,
none of y'all are nothing.
I am Mrs. Grey. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I have his kids. I have all of it. It's all me. Yeah.
And to me, Diamond was like just more curious than anything else. That she's like, I do want to find out what happened to him, but I also want to know, who are these women? Like, who was my husband married to? But when Vanessa starts coming at her, she's like, all right, I'm only going to listen to Bud so much. Right. Because Noelle and Vanessa had already had their conflict. Right. And so Noelle is like, I know how she is. But this is the first time Diamond is meeting her in person.
And Diamond was ready to be a whole harem. She was just like, we can do this. We can share him. Like, no, ma'am. We cannot share him. What are you doing?
And that's what they were like, are you crazy? She's like, okay, so I guess I'm the only one. She's like, who would have been okay with it.
As long as I'm not the bottom bitch, I'm good. That's all she cared about. Like, Diamond, baby, please.
Well, but that's what I was like. That she's just, her confidence level is so low.
It's so low.
Yeah.
She was so ready. She was like, first she was upset, but then she was like, I've been, one of many before. I could do it again.
Yeah. And said, at least he's nicer than Julie.
Right. Which is not saying very much, by the way.
I know, but that was her feeling. She was like, he takes care of me. He's never hit me or called me names. I guess it would be okay. I mean, I've had worse.
Okay.
So that's what I'm like. She needs a little bit more.
Yeah.
So that by the next book, that is like, all right, we're not going to worry about your mindset anymore.
Speaking of which, tell us a little about what we can expect in the sequel, Truth, Lies, and Mr. Grey.
Well, Truth, Lies, and Mr. Grey picks up where the three Mrs. Greys left off. It's, by now, you have an idea of who committed the crime. By the second book, we now give the reason of why. Okay. The crime happened. It's like the characters start to explain themselves, and now Cyrus is basically doing cleanup. Like, he's like, my whole life is in shambles. I've lost my wives. They're all mad at me. One, I was like, I won't give away what happened to one of the characters, but he's like, everything is in disarray. I need to fix this. And so he goes about in his Cyrus Grey sort of way to try to fix it.
Oh boy.
And so all the carnage and emotional upheaval and chaos that ensues from that. And then the wives have their own things going on in their private lives now, because Vanessa has her own plotting, because now she's angry. And so she's like, I'm seeking revenge. And then Noelle is like, I'm ready to move on and start a new relationship. And Diamond is dealing with her own drama. So
I am so scared for Noelle, because Tariq is dangerous. I'm just saying, when Noelle was sitting in his apartment and Big L came to the door, I was like, Noelle, I think you should be done with Tariq too. I know he was your friend and everything, and the sex was the bomb, but I think we need to just, like, not mess with him. I think we just need to move on from the whole situation.
Yeah. What's the saying? Going from the pan to the fire? Like, if Noelle, of the choices that she makes along the way. But I'm like, she doesn't know. She doesn't know that she's like, I think I'm making better decisions this time. I hope I am. But...
And Tariq's manipulating her, too, because I'm not quite sure. I'm convinced that he's in love with her.
I guess still have to see in book 2.
I guess you have to see in book 2. That's not even fair. And I have the physical one of the 3 Mrs. Greys, but I bought the Kindle version of the second one, so I might have to start reading that because I needed to. Because I read the little teaser that you gave at the end of the 3 Mrs. Greys, and I was like, so this is what we doing, Vanessa? Like, you up here waiting on him? You really just gonna let this man? The power struggles in with these.
And it's like a chess game that they're trying to move the pieces, but they're also trying to figure out the strategy of the other player. And sometimes they make a good call, and sometimes they don't.
So this is more of a thriller, and your other novels are romance. So what made you step onto the thriller side?
Well, the other ones were romance, but they were romances that had more of a soap opera feel. Okay. It wasn't a traditional individual romance story. It was more like serials. So it was all these characters with their romantic relationships and their family relationships. And sometimes I would insert a thriller component. It would be like with soap operas, they have a murder, and you're trying to figure out which character in all of this cast of characters may have done it. Right. And it's just one subset of this big story. I wanted to take the thriller aspect that I'd included in my past stories and make it the story. Okay. And I just thought that this was a chance to do it. When I came up with the idea, I'm like, oh, it would be so fun, but I've never done a thriller before, or a domestic thriller. And so this was my getting my toe in. And then when I saw the response from people, like especially a lot of the Black readers are like, this is really fun. Yes. A spicy thriller with Black characters. And I'm like, I think I want to do more of this. Okay. Like my next book that's coming out next year is another domestic thriller. Okay. It's a multiracial cast, but it's based on the Alfred Hitchcock Strangers on a Train premises. Okay. Crisscross murders. That if you've seen the film, it's about 2 men who meet on a train, and one of them is like, the perfect alibi would be if we murder this person for each other, but we have no relationship to the other person. And so he's like, what do you think about it? And the other guy's like, yeah, cool idea, and then walks away until the person he hated has been murdered. His wife. Okay. And then he starts to put together like, oh my God, did he really kill her for me? And so this is a very similar premise, is that it's 2 women, a Black woman and a white woman from very different worlds. The white woman is very upper class, and they meet by coincidence at a hotel, and they're like, and one is like, later she's like, well, what do you think? And the Black woman's like, no, that's just crazy. And the story goes from there. Right.
I think you must be psychic, because every time you say something, it's like a question that I had on the list next, because I was getting ready to ask you what books you have in the works. So do you have a title for this book yet?
Not So Perfect Strangers.
Oh. And you said that comes out next year?
Yeah, it comes out in March. Oh. I think, March or April of next year. I think that's what they slated for it.
Okay, so do you think you're going to stay with the thrillers, or are you going to bounce back to the romance?
I think I have to see, because Shelly Ellis is on the back burner for now, because I will be writing under Ellis Stratton. Okay. Because it's a different publisher. But there's some exciting stuff happening with Shelly Ellis, so I don't know if is necessarily the end of the story. For me, writing women's fiction, that type of stuff.
Okay, but
because I have more ideas. I even have started writing more Shelly Ellis like type stories.
Okay.
So it would be nice to continue that pen name.
Okay. So where can readers buy your books?
Well, you can definitely buy them online at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. A lot of people find my books at their local Walmart.
Okay.
Occasionally Target, but usually Walmart.
Okay.
And if you go to my website, ShellyEllisBooks.com, it should be links to all my past books, and it should be links to the retailers.
Okay. Great. And where can we find you on social media?
You can find me at Ellis Romance on Twitter.
Okay.
And you can find me at Shelly Stratton Books on Instagram.
Okay, great. Well, we have come to the end of our show. I want to thank you so much for sharing your time and your talents with us today. I'm looking forward to reading the sequel. And I might even have to go read some of your romance books.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
No problem. And Booze and Bros, you know how I do. At the end of every show, I leave you with a quote. And today our quote comes from the late Harlem Renaissance poet Claude McKay. And he said, "If a man is not faithful to his own individuality, he cannot be loyal to anything." Until next time, you know what to do. Grab a book and read. And I'm out. You've been listening to Between the Reads. I'm your host, Audra Russell. Thanks for lending me your ear. If you enjoy this content, please consider supporting this independent podcast by becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/betweenthereads or making a one-time donation at www.ko-fi.com/betweenthereadspodcast. That's www.ko-fi.com/betweenthereadspodcast. Tune in next week for another great episode.